After the failed Ardennes offensive, the German army launched 3 large-scale offensives in Hungary in the first few months of 1945. The first, Operation Konrad, was a joint German-Hungarian effort to relieve the encircled garrison of Budapest in January of 1945. The operation was divided into 3 parts. The 5th Panzer Division Viking was committed to action alongside the 3rd Panzer Division Totenkopf in the 4th Panzer Corps on the 1st of January. This move had achieved some success, but it had also severely weakened the defenses on the north side of the river Danube. Viking was pulled out of the line to launch a second relief attempt, Operation Konrad II. The drive continued until the 12th of January. Motorized infantry of the Viking reached as far as Budapest's northern suburbs. Morale was high, and according to some reports it was even difficult to get the wounded to go to the rear. Then, on the 13th of January, the units were ordered to stop and pull back. General Herbert Gille, the commander of the 4th Panzer Corps, protested immediately, only to be informed that the order came from the highest circles. Gille and most of his officers were convinced that they could have reached the Hungarian capital. But the German High Command decided to destroy the bulk of the Soviet forces by launching a double envelopment west of Budapest. Operation Konrad III got underway on the 17th of January. The panzers penetrated deep into the Soviet defenses from the south of Budapest. The advance columns slammed into the Soviets' 4 Guards army, which was overrun in 2 days, destroying hundreds of Soviet tanks along the way. The Panzer Corps was fighting for every meter of ground. However, the relief forces could not achieve their goal despite making a 24-kilometer bulge in the Soviet defensive line. Red Army maneuvered forces to block the advance, and they barely managed to stop the advance on the 26th of January, only some 20 kilometers from Budapest. Meanwhile, the 6th Panzer Army was transferred to Hungary in early 1945. This was the last army available to the German military leadership which was more or less intact and capable of launching a major offensive. After it had been withdrawn from the Western Front, it was replenished with men and equipment as fully as was possible, and it almost regained its former strength. It would have been logical to deploy it on German territory against the Allied troops. But it happened otherwise. It was deployed in Hungary to protect the Hungarian oil fields and refineries in the southern part of the country, and it participated in 2 large offensives. Operation Southwind, or Südwind in German, was an operation from the 17th to the 24th of February 1945. The aim of the offensive was to eliminate a Soviet bridgehead which was formed during the previous month. 2 Panzer Corps were to conduct the attack: Panzer Corps Feldherrnhalle, already present in the area, and the 1st SS Panzer Corps. The amount of tanks and self-propelled guns was high, totaling 282, including 44 Tiger II tanks. Operation Südwind had gone according to the plan. The Soviet bridgehead and threat were completely eliminated, but German casualties were high. Material losses were approximately 130 panzers and Jagdpanzers, although the majority was repairable. Although the operation itself was a success, the downside was that the Soviets became aware of the presence of the 1st SS Panzer Corps in Hungary well in time before the next offensive, Operation Spring Awakening. This gave the Soviets ample time to strengthen their defenses for the coming offensive. Operation Spring Awakening lasted from March the 6th until the 15th of 1945. The aim of this operation was to secure the last significant oil reserves still available to the Axis powers and prevent the Red Army from advancing towards Vienna. The Hungarian oil region and the Vienna oil region made up to 80% of the reserves, without which the war effort could not be continued. Before the offensive, strict secrecy rulings were put into place. License plates were to be covered, insignia on vehicles and uniforms to be covered, no reconnaissance in forward combat areas, unit movements only by night or overcast conditions, no radio traffic, and the units were not to appear on situation maps. As part of the secrecy measures, 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte was ordered to temporarily remove the soldiers' cuff titles, a sign of their elite status. The Soviet plan, along with the strategic deployment of the Soviet forces, was quite similar to that of the Battle of Kursk. The 3rd Ukrainian Front worked on digging in, creating extensive trench networks ideal for anti-tank defenses, along with defensive earthworks for artillery and infantry. The main difference between the Soviet defenses during the Battle of Kursk and Operation Spring Awakening was the relatively short time frame allowed for defensive preparations, which was half a month, and the smaller number of Soviet forces participating in the defensive measures. On the 6th of March 1945, 10 armored and 5 infantry divisions, including a large number of Tiger II tanks, struck 3rd Ukrainian Front. The attack was spearheaded by the 6th Panzer Army and its elite units. The army made good progress at first, but as they drew near the Danube River, the combination of muddy terrain and strong Soviet resistance had ground the Soviet advance to stop. On 10th of March, the Axis forces had a total of 230 operational tanks and 167 operational assault guns between their 17 divisions. By the 14th of March, Operation Spring Awakening was stopped. On the 16th of March, the Soviet forces counterattacked in strength. The Germans were driven back to the positions that they held before Operation Spring Awakening. The overwhelming numerical superiority of the Red Army made any defense impossible.